if you took what's right about A Quiet Place and what's right about The Silence and put them together, I think that that would be the movie of my dreams. Hi, hello, how are you? Welcome back. Today is another episode of Film Fridays, and we are going to be talking about the buzz around here, a new movie called The Silence. The Silence has been getting a lot of buzz because it has essentially the same very basic plot of A Quiet Place, which is what I reviewed. I will put up here on a card, and people were criticizing it for being an exact copy. So to give you a little bit of a backstory, The Silence is a 2015 novel written by Tim Levin, a UK author, and it is about 13-year-old or 14-year-old Allie who loses her hearing 3 years ago in a car accident. At one point in time, the news is breaking out that there is some sort of wasp monster invasion, and just like A Quiet Place, these things are blind and they rely on sound. And to give you a little bit of a history in terms of timeline, the Bird Box novel came out in 2014, the Silence novel came out in 2015, and A Quiet Place movie came out in 2018. Just a quick disclaimer, just like with any other episode, these thoughts are my own opinion as my own singular deaf person. Other people may disagree with what I have to say, other people may agree, and what they might like, I might not like. So, don't take my opinion as the only one. Go out and read Twitter threads from various other deaf people. Also, even though the original story took place in the UK where they used BSL, I'm just going to say ASL because we're talking about the movie, just to make things easier. Let's start off with the bad so we can end with the good, and then I'm going to really end with sort of a comparison between the two. So one of the main negatives of The Silence is the fact that a hearing actor was casted as Allie, the deaf character. Kiernan Shipka, who you may recognize from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, plays Allie. Kiernan is as hearing as a hearing person would be. She doesn't know ASL, and she learned ASL for the role. The director claimed that Kiernan was absolutely flawless in signing, flawless as acting as a deaf person and things like that. I cannot really judge somebody's ASL knowledge because I myself am not fluent, so I will just leave this tweet that I saw. Also, I've said this before, but when you use SimCom, and a lot of SimCom was used in this movie, it's going to be clunky anyway. But even if you take that away, a lot of the signs were really strange. Like Niall said, the sign for walk, she takes her right hand and walks on her left hand, and it doesn't really make any sense. There were 3 ASL tutors for this film, 2 in the United States and 1 in Toronto. Take that as you will. Kiernan's facial expressions were also very, both flat and stiff at the same time. Somebody said on a tweet that they were looking constipated a lot, and it was just a lot of almost the same exact face that she does use in Sabrina, and I felt like I was watching Sabrina for a second. But yeah, there's not a lot of facial expressions going on, facial movement, which is very important in sign language, so for a movie that was supposed to be all about being silent and really using ASL to their advantage, they didn't use ASL to their advantage. They used it for about 5 minutes total. I might be exaggerating how little it was, but you really didn't get a whole lot of it. In the book, BSL is used so much. I remember a lot of text being in italics or something because it was just, that's how you communicate in the book. That was the whole thing. But in the movie, they're constantly whispering. And the reason for that is likely because they want the hearing audience, and a lot of people are like, I don't want to read subtitles. I guess from a business standpoint, that's where they were going, and I understand that sometimes you have to make the right business moves, but from an ethical, moral representation standpoint, it fell flat. But going back to that, I've noticed this pattern. I'm not the only one who noticed this, but when you have a hearing actor playing a deaf role that is fluent in ASL, and they have family or friends that also start learning it or have learned it, the hearing friends, family, whatever, always sign more and or better than the hearing actor playing the deaf character. Allie's boyfriend, parents all seem to have, one, the better vocabulary and also just the flow and whatnot. They just seem to sign better, and even if they don't, which is, you're new at it, it's fine, it doesn't matter, I can't judge, I'm not that great myself. But the hearing people make more of an effort than the actual deaf person. It's so weird to me. So those were the things. Let's go on to the good things. The captions were awesome. I know Netflix has an issue with captions, but also for the most part they're good at adding captions. But I felt like this was so much more detailed. I mean, I've seen a lot of other movies and shows that caption the audio cues, like knocking on doors and things, but this was so detailed. Thumping gets louder, faster, and women screaming and screaming louder, things like that. The stoutest things to get captioned. That was really nice. I liked that very much. In the beginning, you see Allie get bullied, mocked by her peers. She's standing, I guess, waiting for the bus or something, or waiting to get picked up. And there's these few jocks behind her, and they're mocking sign language and mocking a deaf accent, how she talks, things like that. She's not really noticing what's going on. But then she kind of feels something, you just get that feeling that something's going on, like you're being stared at. And she looks up, and the kids in front of her are laughing, and that's when she sees, okay, there's something going on, turns around, catches the bullies, and they start to feel bad that they got caught, and the way that she picked up on it and just the fact that it happened are two very real things. So, good job on that. There is no fake deaf accent, which I think is very spot on. I mentioned this at Switched at Birth. Daphne has a fake accent. Katie does not sound like that in real life. And I thought that you really didn't need to have a fake deaf accent because a lot of oral deaf people don't have accents. You know, they might have just grown up not having one, or they were late deafened. This is probably why. Or, just a lot of speech therapy. They probably just did that one because it's easier, but also it does make sense because she was only deaf 3 years ago, and you still get the same kind of speech for a while. It may diminish at times as time goes by, but for the most part, it's not surprising that same voice would stay. They show that deaf people can date, and not only that deaf people can date and have a boyfriend, but a hearing and deaf relationship. She has a hearing boyfriend who learns ASL for her. And then, of course, she never signs back to him, which is weird. But anyway, actually, can we go back to a bad thing real quick? When she's using the iPad in video conferencing with her boyfriend, he's signing to her, but why is she not signing back to him when she's supposed to be quiet? And she's yell whispering into the iPad for him to go. It makes no sense. Okay, back to the good things. So yeah, even if hearing boyfriend may not be perfect, he's learning, he's putting in the effort, and it's fantastic. And they seem to have a really good relationship. At the end of the movie, they're still together, still loving each other. Perfect. This movie recognizes that residual hearing is a thing, and I couldn't love it more. For the most part, it seems that Allie can hear deeper tones. She has a lot of ringing. She can hear high-pitched ringing, and that's tinnitus. Very common in deaf people, very annoying. But she seems to be able to hear very muffled, mind you, because she lost a ton of her hearing, barking from her dog. And also, I think when they run into the guy with the gun near the beginning, he has a very loud, deep voice, and she was able to hear that muffled a little bit. I've said this time and time again, many deaf people have residual hearing, which fluctuates. Sometimes we hear deep things, sometimes we only hear high-pitched things. It is not mind-boggling that she would be able to hear that. I just like that they're showing that because a lot of people are like, how is she deaf if she can hear that? I also like the use of visual cues. So with the dog, again, when he notices that the vests are coming, his hair starts to stand up, and that gives her an idea as well of, when something's about to happen. Now let's compare the two. For me, I think I prefer the silence with the story, the character development. There's more action that happens, and I just felt a lot more attached to the characters than I did in A Quiet Place. There was a lot of sacrifice, a lot of death. You know, you got so close to the grandmother who eventually sacrificed herself, and it was so sad. And there's just more action that happens. You get the beginning of the story before things go on, and then they're moving from place to place, and they have interactions with other people. I like that. It wasn't just one family in one house just hiding there forever, except for that one rare encounter that they had with somebody else. In the silence, you do get a little more backstory. It's not a lot, but you do get a little bit of it, whereas in A Quiet Place, you don't really get much at all. In the silence, you know that they got trapped in a cave, and then they eventually evolved, and then the miners broke it, and then boom, that's what happens. In A Quiet Place, I've seen it twice, and I don't remember there really being any sort of real backstory, but A Quiet Place does get a little bit of a pass because there is a sequel coming out. So I imagine that they might use that opportunity to give a little bit more information. So I'm not gonna completely fault the movie for that. I personally found that the vests were more interesting than whatever the monsters were in A Quiet Place. You had more interactions with the vests in the silence, and I don't know, they kind of just weirded me out a little bit more, probably because you just saw so much of them. You have the deaf character working more in the silence than in A Quiet Place. Both dads in both movies were very overprotective, but in the silence, you kind of utilize Allie more, except movie Allie kind of sucked. Let's be honest, if you've read the book, you know book Allie is utilized way more, and she plays more of the hero. She is the main protagonist in the movie, or in the book. But in the movie, it's more like her dad is the main protagonist. He's doing all the work. At the end of the day, A Quiet Place does so much better with representation, the use of ASL, the way that it's shown in the film, mannerisms, because, hello, Millicent is deaf. When the director of The Silence says that Kiernan is living like a deaf person, not really. I mean, she's not signing at all. She's not using the language that has started to become more of her main language, I guess. She's not using her iPad enough and the other things that she was doing in the book and really helping out. With A Quiet Place, you obviously get that feeling of Millicent Regan being deaf because she just flat out is, and everything just makes more sense. But really, if we could just mesh A Quiet Place, what's good with A Quiet Place and what's good with The Silence, and put it together to make it one big film, that would be a great movie to me. I think that is the movie of my dreams that I have been waiting for. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts on The Silence and also how it compares, in my opinion, to A Quiet Place. If you enjoy reading, I highly recommend you get The Silence. I think it's a great book. It had so much more story, it had so much more character development. You get so much more use out of Allie, a real deaf heroine protagonist, etc., etc. Just so good. Of course, it's really hard to take a book and condense it into a movie and get everything, but oh god, trust me, get the book. If you've seen The Silence, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it. I would love to know your opinions. If you would like to help translate this video, I will have a link down below in the description box. Always helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I will see you later. Bye.